Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. Today I'm going to be going over the Shiba Inu charts. Had a subscriber, Sean Phillips 6565, who asked me for a chart, but I just decided to put out a video real quick after looking at the charts. It's pretty interesting. Shiba Inu has this 5-wave pattern that we're seeing throughout the broader market, especially in the ISO 222 tokens. It's actually trading towards the bottom of the range, right around the -5. It just recently, with this last little push down, did a nice little liquidity sweep of this liquidation candle that we saw right here on February 3rd, which is a good sign. If you look at this low right here that we just put in, it's actually just a hair lower than the liquidation candle we saw on August 5th, and this entire pattern, the price is trading right at that bottom range, which could potentially be a good sign and possibly a good time to enter. And Shiba Inu is well known to make these big moves. As you can see here, this thing just ripped up here to the top of the range. And this pattern is actually pretty similar to what we're seeing right now, this descending wedge pattern. So you can see the power that Shiba Inu gets once it finally decides to reverse. And in this case, when this reversal occurred, it didn't even sweep this low right here. This sweeping candle right here on August 5th, sweeping this previous low right here, was all it took. Even though it consolidated and played around a little bit, breaking to the low side of this pattern right here, once this baby decided to rip, it was just off to the races. So we could see something similar to that here, as these two patterns look quite a bit similar. And if you look at the equilibrium zone and you measure it out, you can see here that it's actually a little bit off center, so it's pulling to the downside of the equilibrium zone. And it's been my experience that anywhere between these two red lines here and this bottom line here is generally, not always, but generally a good time to start building a position, because as this pulls to the bottom side of this equilibrium, generally what you'll see is that when this does break out, it will do the exact opposite on the upper side of the scale. So since it's pulling down, pulling the average to the bottom side of the equilibrium, it will do the exact same thing when it breaks to the top of the range. It will pull this back to the top side. So you kind of get this push and pull between the two of them. So from what I've seen on the charts many times in the past, using the equilibrium zones, which I've essentially pioneered and I'm still in the process of mastering, times where you see that opposition pulling to the downside can be a good thing when it breaks out to the top of the range, because you'll also get it to the upside. So this line right here represents the more long-term trend. As we popped out of it here, it got rejected, so we had a type of a false breakout coming to the top side. But if you actually go to the monthly chart and take a closer look at the pattern overall, you can see that this chart somewhat resembles what we saw in the XRP charts. Set this high right here around the 4087 mark, came up here just recently, March 1st, touched this upper trend line, which gave us 2 points to set this upper trend line, consolidated, broke out with the Trump pump right in this area here, but it was actually already kind of breaking out. So overall, looking at this, it's creating a very interesting pattern. And as it consolidates and gets tighter and tighter, starts to build up more and more pressure. So in my opinion, it's just a matter of time before this breaks out. Let's take a look at the weekly chart, probably give us a little bit more information. So it's definitely building up that momentum. Now it very well could continue to drop down. It's hard to say what's going to happen with the markets right now. If you saw my video from last night labeled The Coming Crypto False Breakout and the Flash Crash in April, which is a 2-part series of which I will be releasing the second video this afternoon, and you'll definitely want to watch it. It's packed full information on my thesis of where I think the price is going to go. There's probably a good chance that we'll see Shiba Inu drop down here a little bit more before it finally decides to start moving up on this 5th wave. And if it follows my thesis that I've laid out in that last video, what we're going to see is a false breakout moving into the fifth wave here, of which it will then have a flash crash moving into April, sometime around mid-April would be my guess, which it will come down, sweep the patterns, and likely follow the same pattern as the broader market in the ISO 222 tokens, which in my opinion have the most utility and will be the most desirable coins to own moving forward, as they actually have a purpose and they're starting to be used for their intended purpose. So this may be a good time to start accumulating a position or adding to a position that you already have at these price points or below here. And another thing that's interesting is these weak dojis are stacked right here in this area. You can see these weak dojis, and if you follow my grafting equilibrium trading strategy, you know that I use weak dojis to potentially indicate bottoms of chart patterns, and we've set a weak doji right here. So depending on what happens moving into next week and how this candle turns out, this very well could be marking the bottom of this particular pattern. And as you can see, this descending wedge is actually running out of territory. And a lot of times you'll see them break out of this, retest this upper trend line before moving up. But there are also times where it'll break below this, sweeping liquidity, which really isn't necessary in this case as it swept this entire pattern. But then after sweeping down towards the lows, then it will rocket out of here. And a lot of times the biggest jumps that you'll see coming out of these wedges are the ones that actually come out here down below the pattern and break out. Oftentimes, not every time, but often, those that come below and break out will not retest the upper trend line, but will basically pop up and then consolidate somewhere around equilibrium, then start to march forward. So this will definitely be an interesting one to watch moving forward. And if you've followed my King Yeshua's channel, she talks extensively about Shiba Inu and how she believes, and has believed for quite some time, that Shiba Inu would break out first, even though we haven't seen that thus far, and many would argue that XRP is the one that was leading the market and XRP ran first. I do believe she'll be correct in her thesis, as I've seen many of her prophecies come to fruition over the years, and she is incredibly gifted, and I have no reason to doubt her. But at the same time, I'm certainly not speaking on her behalf or in her place. But I definitely keep the videos that she put out in mind. And by the way, if anybody would like to follow her channel, it looks like she's erased all the videos off her YouTube channel recently. She's had a lot of issues with YouTube, as many of us have over the years with the censorship. But she has a Rumble channel under the name My King Yeshua, and she also has a Telegram channel under that same name, where she posts a lot of information that you can look at. So I definitely recommend taking a look at it. So those are kind of my thoughts on the charts that we're seeing here. I think this is going to follow that same thesis that I laid out in my video last night, and we'll be continuing in the second video this afternoon, that we're going to see a false breakout. It's going to be a big move, don't get me wrong. It's not just going to be a little fake out like we saw earlier. It's going to move up heavily. It's definitely going to fool you. They want to try and drag as many people into this thing as they can, so when the flash crash comes, they can just absolutely suck the life out of everybody. Because these market makers, they don't care about you, they don't care about me, they don't care about anything. The bottom line is their job is to accumulate as many shares as they can so that they can distribute those shares to keep the markets balanced and keep the algorithms fed so that the market continues to function in a way that greatly benefits them and takes money from everybody else. So this would definitely be one to keep your eye on. I wouldn't bet the farm on it by any means, but I think there's definitely going to be a bright future for this from time to time, and it looks like it could be setting up for a substantial move, especially when you look at the overall pattern here. That looks very similar to the XRP chart before its breakout and setting a new all-time high just recently around the Trump election. So thank you for watching this video. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Hit the like button if you could. I'd really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything and it helps the channel. Have a great day.